What's your favorite color? May seem like a strange title for an episode of Liberate Your People Pleaser, but here's why it's so important. One day, I was in a therapist's office with my husband at the time. We'd been married about 12 years. And so we were in counseling for various things. And the therapist looked at me and he asked, Brenda, what's your favorite color? And I turned and looked at my husband so he could tell me. That's how lost I was. That's how lost in pleasing him that I was without even realizing it, that now I was even looking to him to tell me what my favorite color was. So you can imagine, along the way, there were many times that I looked to him to tell me how I should feel about something, or how I should behave about something, or how I should react to something, or what I should be doing to please him or to make someone else happy. Because as a people pleaser, that's what happens. We end up getting in these relationships that will perpetuate the dynamic of people pleasing, that will perpetuate us giving up who we are or sacrificing who we are so that someone else can be who they want to be, right? To the point that not everyone goes as far as I did. I'm an overachiever, and gets to the point where they've lost themselves so entirely, they don't even remember what their favorite color is and are looking to someone else to tell them. I mean, that's pretty lost. But you can probably relate to that in some way, where you realize you've deferred so many times. You've considered what other people want, how they want you to act, how they want you to behave, how they want you to feel. And you've changed what you're thinking, feeling, how you want to act or react. You've changed it based on what somebody else wants from you, so that you will then get their love and approval, or not rock the boat, right? Or not upset anybody, or not make waves, all of those things. So these are these aspects of people pleasing that diminish us, okay? Because every time we lose ourselves in the moment or put someone else in a preferential place. So this is like being who's number one and who's number two, but I don't mean that in any sort of healthy competitive way. I mean that when I put you in the position of number one, I am always one down. And so whatever I want and need is not nearly as important as what you want and need. And there are so many rationalizations for this that I'm not even going to get into, or this podcast would last for days instead of 15 or 20 minutes. But we're very cultured. There are a lot of different places, pockets of culture, whether it's inside families or inside religions or other sort of organizations. It can be this way a lot at work. Like, of course, my boss is number one and I'm number two because I'm supposed to do what he tells me to do. But am I really? Because, of course, in some sense, I take a job knowing I'm going to fulfill that job. And hopefully I take the job knowing that that's something I want to do. Right. But if somebody asks us to cross the line, or somebody asks us to, be working overtime when they're not paying for it, or, any number of things, then there's the time for me to say no. There's the time for me to ask a question. Do you think that's a good idea? Or here's what I have to contribute, or whatever. That happens when we're equals. So I can be in a healthy environment. I can be an employer, or I can be an employee. I've done both, and have relationships based on equality, even though there's hierarchy in the organizational structure. Okay. So those can coexist. I mean, one of my favorite movies it's not about that, but it demonstrates that equality, and people have varying levels of positions in hierarchy. What we think of as hierarchy was the movie Black Panther. And by the time we got to the end of the movie, like I just have tears streaming down my face, and I'm like, what is that about? It's not really about the story. And I realized it's because all through this movie, we've been demonstrated what equality looks like. We've had that demonstrated for us through the story, whether it's gender equality or different tribes, and their equality, different people in the, or there was a king, there were generals, there were, so different types of hierarchy, but everyone was equal. And it was so gorgeous to me. And we don't have a lot of great examples in culture of true equality. We have many examples of inequality, but we don't have that many examples of equality. So whether you're a superhero fan or not, maybe that's not your genre that you would normally go to, but it might be worth watching just to see that equality demonstrated in those relationships. So anyway, back to the podcast. So when I had lost myself to the degree that I didn't know my favorite color, and I'm looking to my husband to tell me what it is, there's no equality in that. In all people-pleasing dynamics, there's not equality, because in order for you to be the pleaser, you are not equal to. And so slowly, one by one, after that day, I started bringing equality into my life. Now, it was a slow process, and I won't even say I'm done today. I mean, that was, whatever, 30 years ago, 20 some anyway. And it still is a dynamic that trips me up from time to time. But that day I realized the degree to which I was lost, and I took a very conscious, stand to say, I have to find myself. Now, first there was that I had to find myself. What do I want? What is my favorite color? What are my preferences? What if I wasn't just doing what my husband wanted me to do, which was that was my story, just because who I was. That may not be your story. You may be doing what a parent wants you to do. You may be doing, what a lover wants you to do, what an employer wants to do, a friend. There's plenty of friendships based on the same kind of inequality, where one friend has all the power and they're getting the other friend, the people pleaser, to do what they want them to do. So it can happen in any kind of relationship. So you want to look at that and say, where is that happening to me? Where am I giving up myself? So first I have to know what I would want. So, it took me a while just to kind of parse out when something would happen, and you'll know, because you'll kind of feel it the way I felt. Like, on the one hand, I'm looking to my husband to give me the answer to what my favorite color is. And on the other hand, that feels uncomfortable. Or there are times you absolutely know you zip your lips, right? Rather than rock the boat or upset somebody or say something unpopular or something like that. So, that's your sign that you're giving up your authenticity to fit the role or fit the need or fit the stereotype or, the whatever that somebody wants from you, to please them, so to speak. So when you feel that, think about that. Know that's your little, red flag waving at you. And first consider, what do you really want? What would you, if you, felt the freedom and the empowerment to say anything you wanted to say or react any way you wanted to react? You probably don't want to react like a screaming, stomping child, right? Because as adults, that we may come off initially with that kind of rage or anger, but when we get to our authentic nature knows that stomping and screaming and throwing a temper tantrum doesn't get your cause noticed generally, okay? So there's a place for anger, and there's absolutely a place for no means no, right? And for making a scene, so to speak. But you want to do it in a way that's really grounded in truth, that's really grounded in your own authentic nature. And so it takes some, kind of trial and error, trying different things on, almost like you're shopping, right? You're going to try and let's see, how do I want to respond to this? Well, I could do it this way or that way, or you watch people around you, how they're responding, and start to notice what resonates with you more deeply. Now, you may not be as lost as I was, right? And you may know exactly how you want to respond, exactly how you feel. You just don't feel free to express it. So either way, in this process, again, the unraveling of what isn't serving you, you start to really embrace what you're feeling, what you're wanting, what you're needing, what your opinion is, what you want to say, what your favorite color is. And then you make the step to start to express that. And it's true, some people won't like it. They're used to you being whoever they wanted you to be. But if they really love you, if the relationship really has value to them, they will go through the pain of beginning to not have you agree with them all the time and beginning to see you also for your authentic self. And there will be plenty of people in your life that want to do that. There will be some who won't. Like with my husband at the time, it took another several years, I can't remember, 3 or 4 years later, I had started to, one by one, just start to claim more of what I wanted, not agree when I didn't agree and things like that. And it blew up to a point where he just finally told me he didn't like who I was anymore. And I understood that because who he married was somebody who would do whatever he wanted to do, say, only what he wanted to hear. We had very few arguments, trust me. And, just went along with whatever he was, whatever his priority was. So, of course, it was a big shock when I stopped doing that. I wasn't who he married. But for me, that was the only choice. I couldn't be that girl anymore who just did whatever he wanted me to do, thought however he wanted me to think, felt however he wanted me to feel. I had to be myself. And so that was a price I was willing to pay. It was a relationship I was willing to lose, even though it was very painful. I mean, we had 4 children. It was a big ass deal. But once you begin to liberate yourself, you're not going to go put yourself back in that prison, right? When I didn't know any better, I didn't even know I was in a prison. Once I realized I was, but I also had the key to unlock the door, right? And walk out. Somebody who didn't want to be with me in my freedom wasn't somebody that I wanted to be with. So I will share with you as we wrap this up today. My favorite color is purple. And I work daily to make sure I am not giving up myself to please somebody else or to get their approval. And yes, some days it's a lot of work. Some days it's not. Some days it comes so naturally and it's so easy. And, I have so many people in my life right now that don't want me to be anything other than who I am. And so that's what happens over time. You just start to collect more people and attract more people who don't want you to be anything less than your authentic self. And of course, that is always growing and changing. My authentic self at 30 is not what it is now at, 59. So I'm always growing and evolving. And I'm doing that from a place of authenticity because of just my own desire to grow and evolve, not to become somebody I think somebody else wants me to be. So I hope this has been helpful. And I would really love to hear how this is working for you. Are you able to start to claim those things that are yours? And then are you able to speak them out loud, to whatever setting it is? And maybe, it's not usually all or none. Like sometimes there'll be a person in our life where we really feel comfortable to speak our truth to them. But man, at work, that's another story. Or with my mother, that's another story. Or, in my marriage, that's another story, whatever. So that's a very natural part of the liberation process. So know that, and know that I am here to help you in any way that I can. So put your question or comment, in that comments area, and always feel free to reach out to me directly at brenda@brendaflorida.com, or go to my website, brendaflorida.com, and, contact me through there. And I mean, it is my life's joy to help people through this process so that we can be liberated and live in that freedom that is only available when we are in authentic self-expression. That's what I want for you, authentic self-expression. I love you.